Welcome to the Visibility Project podcast.
Welcome to the Visibility Project podcast.
Welcome to the Visibility Project podcast.
Started by a group of citizens in a small Michigan town with a like-minded goal
of increasing the visibility
of the unseen and unheard populations in our community.
Our guests will share stories and insights
with the goal of increasing our awareness and knowledge
of various aspects of diversity and equity
to create a more connected, empathetic, and inclusive community.
So, let's get to work.
Let's get to work.
So let's get to work.
So, let's get to work.
Let's get to work.
Welcome back to the Visibility Project podcast. I'm your host, Jeremiah Lee. Spearheaded by the members of the Cultural Awareness Coalition, the project is the brainchild of several organizations and individuals with shared values who sit on a project steering team. We hope that the podcast series creates a deeper empathy for others and serves as a catalyst for people to actively create a more inclusive community and world. This month, we will be speaking with two guests on the topic of autism and cognitive disabilities. We'll be talking with Hollie Kayden, who has autism, as well as her mother, Trisha Fenby, who is an advocate for the disability community, not only for her daughter, but for the entire Midland, Michigan community. We will begin our episode today with a conversation with Hollie, directly followed by a more in-depth conversation with Trisha. Hollie Kayden has a passion for theater, languages, and music. She enjoys studying foreign languages and is currently improving her skills in German and Russian with the anticipation of visiting those countries in the near future. She is exploring her interest in theater and languages at Saginaw Valley State University as an independent learner. Hollie has been cast in several plays in our community, as well as performing on stage and helping backstage. Trisha Fenby is a strong advocate and ally for the disability community with over 20 years of experience. Trisha brings a great deal of knowledge to the community as a parent and a professional. Raising a child with autism has been one of the most challenging and rewarding experiences that prepared Trisha for her role as the Community Inclusion Manager at the Arnold Center. She has certifications as an advocate, an independent facilitator, a SIB Shops coordinator, and in applied positive psychology. Trisha strives to empower others to live their best lives and bridge the gap between the disability community and the inclusive community. So hi, Hollie. How are you today?
Good.
I'm so happy you're here with us today.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask, what would you like people to know about you?
I am 21 years old and I have a dog named Bennett and I go to SVSU and study theater.
Oh, you study theater. Why do you like theater?
Because it is a fun activity.
Oh, that's so cool. What else do you like to do when at SVSU?
Learn languages.
Really? What kind of languages are you studying?
German, Russian.
Oh, wow. You're studying German and Russian?
Yeah.
Can you say some German for me?
Привет.
Oh, that's...
Меня зовут Hollie.
Wow. And you and me, we were studying Japanese before this too, right?
Yeah.
Can you say something in Japanese for me?
Konnichiwa.
Konnichiwa. And I taught you how to introduce your mom, right? Can you remember that one?
Mom.
Yeah, kore wa haha desu. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
You're really good at languages.
Uh-huh.
Why do you like to study languages?
Because it's a fun activity.
So you've studied German and Russian.
Yeah.
Is there any other language you studied?
Spanish.
Really?
Yeah.
Can you speak some Spanish for me?
Hola, ¿cómo estás? Me llamo Hollie.
Me llamo Jeremiah. Mucho gusto. Nice to meet you. So, do you want to go to other countries?
Yeah.
What countries do you want to go to?
Germany.
Why do you want to go to Germany?
Because it's a fun place.
Oh, I bet you want to eat some good German food too.
Yeah.
Me too. Me too. So, I understand that you have autism. Can you tell me a little bit more about your disability?
When I'm trying to start up, my brain works different.
Okay. How do you think it works different?
Because I have autism.
I see. Do you think it's sometimes hard for you to communicate with other people?
Sometimes.
Like, can you,
when I'm trying to start a conversation.
Oh, just at the beginning it's difficult?
Yeah.
Do you think other people don't understand you well?
Yeah.
I see. What do you think would help those people try to communicate with you better?
By saying hi, nice to meet you.
So just treating you like another person then, right?
Yeah.
Do you think sometimes people it's not on your side, it's on other people that are a little nervous about talking to you, do you think?
So, Holly, you know how sometimes when you are very excited about something that you want to share with people and they may not be as excited about it? Like one of the questions you really like to know about people is the color of shirts that they wear.
What color shirt you're wearing today?
Oh, that's something you ask a lot of people?
Yeah.
You didn't ask me that. I'm wearing a white shirt today.
I'm wearing yellow.
Are you?
Yeah.
So why do you like to ask people that question?
Because I like to want to know what color shirt they're wearing today.
Interesting. So sometimes it's hard because they don't. That's the different question, right? Sometimes people are surprised by that.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting though. So I know you like languages. I know you like theater.
Yeah.
What are some of your other hobbies?
I like to listen to music.
Okay, what kind of music do you like?
I like any besides country.
Besides country. Yeah, I think I hear that a lot about people your age too, right?
Yeah.
Who's your favorite?
I like classical music.
Interesting. Who's your favorite classical musician?
I like Mozart.
Mozart?
Yeah, it's autism.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Interesting. I didn't know that either.
So, Holly, what do you know about, besides autism, what do you know about Mozart?
He is a composer.
From what genre?
Classical.
And what year was that?
1756.
1756. Wow. Who's your second favorite
I like
classical musician?
Bach.
Bach? What year did he?
1685.
1685. What else do you know about Bach?
Baroque.
He's in from Baroque era.
Yeah.
So Bach and Mozart. Is there another one that you like a lot?
No.
Just those two as their top ones. Interesting. But you know a lot about them.
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool. So you know a lot about languages and music and theater. What are some of your hobbies?
That's all the three there is.
Okay. So I also heard one time when you were younger, you marched on the Capitol. What did you do?
I was 5 years old. I wanted people to understand about autism better, and I got a bill.
Oh, you helped a bill?
Yeah.
So do you know what that bill did?
No.
Trisha, do you happen to know what that bill did for us?
Yeah. So, Holly, when you were little, you used to have therapy. Do you remember your therapy? But that therapy wasn't covered by insurance because the insurance company felt like autism was a lifelong disability and couldn't be cured. So they didn't see the benefit to providing therapy.
Yeah.
So we had to pay for that insurance out of our own hard-earned money. And we thought it was only fair that insurance helped cover some of these expenses. So you went to the Capitol and you spoke to members at the Capitol about why it was important to get that therapy. And you actually did it more than once. Do you remember how many times you've been to the Capitol?
A lot.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so finally, about 5 years after that first march, we got a phone call from our representative that said he voted and the bill was passed.
Yeah.
Did he mention why that he passed the bill?
He passed the bill because he had the opportunity to meet you, Holly, and you helped him understand the importance of that bill.
Yeah.
So you really helped a lot of people by making your voice heard by talking to those representatives. That's very cool.
There was a second time that we got a bill passed. So do you remember when we went and talked to our representative Thomas about the My Able's bill?
Yeah.
So that was another opportunity for us because people that have disabilities can't have a savings. People that are receiving benefits through Social Security are capped at how much of an asset they can have. So they can't save for their future.
I see.
Or any, long-term situations that might come up. So My Ables is a savings account that was established that's similar to like a student college fund where you can contribute money and it doesn't impact their benefits. And so when this first came about, it was hard to get people to understand the need for it. But I look at, in our situation, the fact that someday I'm not going to be here to support Holly and she's going to need something to fall back on.
Right.
So we went and talked to Senator Stamis at the time and explained to him why that was important. And when the bill came up, he voted in favor because he had a chance to actually hear our story and talk to Holly a little bit. So.
Well, that's great. And it means you've had such a good impact on so many people, not just on yourself, but other people. So I'm really proud of you for doing that. That's amazing. Well, awesome. So thank you so much, Holly, for being here. Do you have questions for me?
No.
No? Well, I'm so happy that you're here for us today to share your story.
Thank you.
Thank you, Holly, so much. Well, Trisha, thanks so much for being here today. I'm so happy to talk to Holly and you about Holly's experiences and also your experiences as a mother and an advocate. So can you start off by telling us a little bit more about yourself and your background?
I am Holly's mom, actually, and my background in disability started when Holly was diagnosed with autism. And I think because it has just been such a ingrained part of my life, I ended up finding a career path that involves working with individuals with disabilities. So I work at the Arnold Center now as the community inclusion manager. And my whole purpose for being there is to connect individuals with disabilities with our community and build that sense of belonging and help bridge the gap that's always evident.
Yeah, so can you tell me more about the Arnold Center here in Midland, Michigan, and what does the Arnold Center do? And then can you dig a little deeper into your role? What do you do on a day-to-day basis?
So the Arnold Center has been around for years. I think actually close to 50, but don't quote me on that. And we are a vocational rehab center. So our purpose is to help people that have disabilities and other barriers build the skills they need to be included in our community through work and life. The Arnold Center has an area within our facility where we work with individuals in a safe space where they can learn job skills. So we have contracts with different agencies that bring work into our building so that we can teach individuals how to do that work and gain the skills that they need to be able to move out into the community to do the same work. We also have contracts with different companies where we go out into the job itself. So we go to the job site like Semiconductor. We have janitorial work that we do. We have shredding that we do with different companies. We go out into those agencies and do the work there alongside of non-disabled peers. So it's a little bit more of a broad area for individuals to work with. Not that safety net that they have in our building,
right,
but giving them that opportunity to gain those skills. And then the next step up is that employment in the community where we work with individuals to get them established in the career that they hope to go into. We also have a couple things going on at our agency. We have our Arnold Farms, which is our we grow. We have a hydroponic garden at the Arnold Center where we grow, I think, 7 or 8 different varieties of leafy greens and microgreens. And then we sell those to local restaurants and local stores here that sell our product for us. And that gives individuals an opportunity. They work from germinating right up to harvesting all of this and marketing it to go along with it. So all kinds of job skills there. And then we have a kitchen that we are just getting ready. We're in the development stage of our kitchen, which is going to be a training center. So we're going to be working with training individuals on culinary skills at our kitchen. So there's a lot of things going on there right now.
That's really exciting. So is it like a natural progression for everybody going the same way where they start like at your center working and then stepping out into the job place, and then finally, is it like a linear path, or does it vary?
It varies. It really does. And it is based on individual needs. So an individual is referred to us usually through another agency, community mental health or Michigan Rehab. They come to us and we do kind of an assessment of some sort where, we just work with the individual. We talk to them about what their goals are, what their needs are, and then we fit them wherever those goals and needs are apparent, I guess.
Well, very cool. And so you've been in these type of positions and type of roles really since Hollie's birth then, until like we're being an advocate?
No. I feel like I've retired and come out of retirement. And so I went to school to be a business administrator, and I worked I worked at Dow as a contractor at Dow Chemical for a while. But because I was always in that advocacy role, and, Hollie's 21. And so when she was diagnosed with autism, she was 2 years old. And back then the ratio was like 1 in 1,500. Wow. And I remember her like getting that diagnosis, and it's also more evident in boys than girls. So it's like for every 4 boys, there's 1 girl that has autism. And so I couldn't find answers to anything. Like, what does this mean for my daughter? What is the prognosis? What is her future? And there's nothing out there that gives that information. And so we kind of became the trailblazers, right? So we just went in feet first and did whatever we could do, to learn as we went. And then it just seemed like people would find us. And so that's how that advocacy started, where people would reach out to us. And then we became friends with many individuals and many parents, and just, helped blaze that trail, I guess, in a way. So,
Sure.
So that's where, when you get to the point at this stage in our life, and I started thinking about how I do this anyway, so why not get paid to do it?
Right. And it makes an impact on Hollie, but also others. You have those lived experiences that you can really apply those to other people as well.
Yeah.
So you talked about when you first found out when she was 2, and I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. So what was it like? What emotions went through you and when you first found out that she was diagnosed with autism?
It's interesting because as a parent, do you guys have kids? You have kids, right?
I don't.
So you have these ideas and these dreams, right? So I was all excited about having a baby girl when she was born, and I had all these ideas that she's going to be a ballerina, and your brain starts thinking about things like, oh, her prom dress, right? I mean, these are just the way you think when you have babies. And then something changes, and then you start thinking, I got to try and figure out what's going on here, because this isn't what should be happening. So you go through a lot to get a diagnosis, and especially at such a young age with a disability that's not so evident, it takes a lot to even get somebody to want to see you, right? So when you go into the doctor and she's 15 months old and she's not talking, and you say to the doctor, she's not talking, he'll say, well, all kids develop at different stages. And then, you start thinking about the fact that she stares off into space, and, so you're trying to get her attention, and the doctor will be like, well, she's just bored. And so, they're trying to ease your mind, but it's not working, because, there's something that's different there. So it just happened that I was able to come up with a list of things that were red flags that I didn't even realize, right? Like, the doctor walked in and she had Teletubbies were her favorite toy, and she had them all lined up neatly on the thing. And he said hello, and she didn't respond. She didn't even look at him. And he's like, oh, she's ignoring me. And I said, she does that. She does that all the time. And then, I said, and this, like, her toys have to be lined up. If I tried to move a Teletubby out of order, it would just cause chaos. And so just these certain things that were enough red flags that the doctor actually finally said, I think we could be looking at an autism diagnosis here. And so then finally, after 6 months, getting that ball rolling, getting that diagnosis then was actually a relief for me, because I wasn't, crazy. I wasn't losing my mind thinking that something was going on with my daughter. So then you start wondering why, like, why did this happen? And I start reading, and at that point, the internet was still fairly new, but you start researching things on the internet, you start hearing things like vaccines cause autism. And so I became the vaccine expert. I knew every ingredient that was in every single vaccine that my daughter was ever given. And I did all the research on it and determined that vaccines really weren't the reason behind it. Which was actually comforting, because then I had a second baby. So then I knew I could actually vaccinate her and feel safe about it. But I wasted all that time trying to find out why this happened to my daughter. And so I realized I can't worry about why. That's not going to change anything. I need to just figure out where we go from here. And so that's when I became that advocate.
Sure. Now, you talked about when you first, anyone has their first child, right? They have these dreams of what, maybe prom dress and things. Now that Hollie's 21 and she's has this disability, but she's absolutely brilliant too. I've never the amount of people that can languages are one of my passion too. And so we're able to chit chat. I was teaching her Japanese before we started this, and we're chit-chatting in German and Russian. And so she's absolutely brilliant, but she does have these disabilities as well. But now, what are your hopes and dreams for Hollie, both in the immediate future, but the long term as well? What is your aspirations, I guess?
Well, those also change and evolve over time. And I was certain as I was raising her that, again, some of the therapies and some of the opportunities that are available for you, they are trying to do their best to entice you to, use the products or their services. And I remember a therapy that promised to make her indistinguishable from her peers. And so I'm like, well, there you go. I don't want people to have any idea. I want her to be indistinguishable from her peers. So we worked hard at it. And then I realized, why? This is her. This is who she is. And this is who she deserves to be, right? You don't need to change her just because she doesn't fit the norm. And so I think when I came to that realization, it kind of freed us both up, because I used to actually, and one of the things about autism particularly is that you establish patterns and routines, and sometimes those patterns don't ever get broken. But I used to actually introduce her as my daughter with autism. I mean, we would go into a store, and if she were to walk up to somebody and say, "Hi, what color of shirt did you wear on Thursday?" I would say, "Oh, this is my daughter. She has autism." And so I did that so much that one day I didn't do it, and Hollie actually corrected me and said, "Mom, I'm your daughter that has autism." And I thought, oh my gosh, I can't believe that that I have to feel the need to call that out, right? That's just wrong for me to ever have to feel like I have to explain her. So I think those are some of the things that once I realized, this is who she is, and I love every bit of her for who she is. And so why do I feel like I need to make an excuse? And when I got through that, it freed us both up, because then she could be who she was, and I didn't have to feel like I had to explain it. Then we could start thinking about that. Yes, she loves theater. So she graduated from high school. I know I didn't answer your question.
That's okay. Keep going.
I'll get to that. She graduated from high school, and she didn't actually graduate from high school. I need to correct that, because she finished high school with a certificate of attendance. So because she had to go into special education classes, and she couldn't pass the standardized tests that are required, she can't get a diploma. And but she was able to go through the process of walking and getting her certificate and wearing her cap and gown and doing all the things that everybody else did at the age of 18. But then she was done, and we had an option to go to a post-secondary program. And in Midland, in Michigan, you can go to post-secondary until you're 26 years old. And that's really just a continuation of training and learning for individuals with disabilities. And so in that case, they start working on those daily living skills like we do at the Arnold Center. They start working on things like teaching laundry and teaching grocery shopping and budgeting and all of those things. But Hollie knows all that because, we did that in life at home. And so I couldn't send her to that school, and I didn't know where else to send her. Like, what are we going to do? She loves theater and music, and they don't offer theater and music in post-secondary.
Sure.
So it just so happened that a friend of ours had done his own advocating and was able to get a program started at SVSU called Think Cardinal. And he had just graduated from Think Cardinal, and they ran an article about him in the newspaper. And I saw that article and thought, oh my gosh, SVSU has theater and foreign languages. So we drove over to SVSU and went through admissions, and Hollie advocated once again for herself and got herself into a German class. And she took her first semester, she took intro to German and passed it with a 98%.
And didn't the professor say he's got to grade her just like everyone else?
Yep. He said, I'm going to hold her to the same standard. So she's not getting credit for the classes at SVSU. She's not going to get credit, and she's not going to get a degree out of it, but she's getting that life skill, right?
Absolutely.
In an area where she's included with other students and flourishing because she's making connections and learning. And so I just kind of laughed because I think here was a young woman that couldn't get a high school diploma because she couldn't pass a standardized test, but she scored higher than most of the students in a college German class. And then she found the theater class, and the theater program just took her in, and they are like her family, and she has been involved in that for a couple of years now. So anyway, your question.
I guess I will jump back to ask you about in a second about the theater and why you think she's so interested in that. I'm intrigued to hear that. But so long-term goals, I know we've talked in the past about what you aspire, because you said, I'm not going to be around forever.
Right.
So what do you hope for? Like, I know that she's taken such huge strides to follow her passions of language and theater and thing, and learn so much about those. What are your hopes for her moving forward in life?
Oh gosh, if I could pick a path for her. So, I think I can see her, she likes working with kids. And so I could see her working at like a theater camp where she could help out with kids, right? And she would be kind of in her element in the theater and, working with the children, or, maybe, I don't know, like Midland's such a good community for having camps and programs for students. So that's where I would love to see her go, because I think that's a natural progression for her.
Sure.
She wants to be a cashier at Target. So it's, and it's funny because I tell her, well, you could be a cashier at Target now, but let's see in the future, something that would, and maybe a cashier at Target would be the perfect job for her forever. But, trying to help her see that living your passion is also such a good opportunity. But I think, I say this all the time, that I spend every waking breath preparing her for my last breath, because I'm not going to be here, and she doesn't have a lot of support. And so I have to make sure that those things like those savings accounts are in place for her, and that she's got a place to live, and that she's got people that are going to be checking in on her.
Yeah. So it's making sure she's going to be successful in life, both professional, but she has those basic necessities lined up as well. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Can we go back to talking about the theater? I think it's so. Why do you think she has such a keen interest in theater? Is there?
I have a theory.
Yeah, theory.
I think communication and social interactions are one of the hardest things for people with autism, and probably with a lot of cognitive disabilities, but particularly autism. And so it's hard for her to be able to have a conversation. And you may have recognized that in the interview, that she doesn't know how to continue a conversation, or might want to talk about something that is of no interest to anyone else. And so I think theater is an opportunity for her to be engaged, and it's scripted. So she doesn't have to think about what she has to say or how somebody's going to respond to her. I think that is just a comfort level for her. That's just my theory.
I think it's probably a good theory. Do you think it's similar with languages too? That there's, a lot of set phrases, or what do you think that the interest level is there for languages too?
She loves, I don't know how, I don't even know if I'm using the right wording, but she loves to like decode, right?
Sure,
so she loves the way words are written in many languages. She loves to see that written out, like when you were showing her that Japanese language. And I think yes, it is very, and same thing with music, right? There's a pattern to it. There's a pattern, and there's some repetition, and there's some comfort in knowing there's a start, a middle, and an end. So
I can totally understand the decoding of languages too. I mean, I remember like learning Arabic, like when I was looking at a Coke bottle and I was comparing like the numbers and the number system, and it's like a decoding process. So I can see how there's similarities there. So that's really interesting. When it talks about connecting with others, you said it can be difficult. Are there things that people can do to help out that, like to help communicate with her?
Yeah, it's hard to tell somebody because your natural instinct is to be guarded, right?
Sure.
So if somebody came up to you and said, "Hi, what year were you born?" it's going to throw you off guard because that's not how you would normally be introduced to somebody. And so I think we all have biases.
Sure.
And it doesn't matter if it's, bias toward a disability or it's a bias toward anything. And so I think the hardest thing for people to do is to let those biases down and just be authentic with people, be open to unique differences.
Right. Accepting, accepting and including is a part of that, right? It's accepting people who there are and finding those commonalities. So I was lucky enough to have that commonality of languages, interest in languges with her. So I can't share that with theater and things, but it's interesting to she's so passionate about other composers as well. And so she also mentioned about her role in advocating for different bills. So can you elaborate a little bit more on this, and like what did she do, and what was the impact of that? Can you elaborate a little bit more on a couple bills that she helped?
She did, yes. So April is Autism Awareness Month. Actually, it has been changed to Autism Acceptance Month, and I have my own opinion of that, but I just think it's sad that we have to ask for acceptance. I think that in today's world, nobody should have to ask to be accepted, but it's April. So we get through April. And so, but anyway, because of that was always a good time to, like I say, we fly our autism flag, right? So we would find something that maybe we were personally passionate about, or something that we knew could help individuals that have disabilities, and we would go to Lansing and we would schedule appointments with our representatives and go in and speak to the bill. So the first bill was the insurance reform, because insurance didn't cover therapies, and I had to cash out my 401k. So that's why I say I kind of retired, and now I came out of retirement because I don't have a retirement now, but I had to cash out my 401k to pay for therapy for my daughter. And I don't have the statistics, but I'm sure there's like a number out there that tells how much it costs to raise a child with autism today. But when insurance doesn't cover a therapy, that puts a huge financial strain on a family. And so that was our first trip to Lansing. We went, and Hollie was 5 years old, and she had went and spoke and said, this is what this therapy has done for me. So of course, it was scripted, and we helped her understand what she needed to say. But for them to be able to see, that she actually had made progress with this therapy helped the representatives, our elected officials, understand the need for it. But it took 5 years. Like, we went back every year for 5 years. And luckily, you know, some of the representatives were there, so they actually got to see her progress as well.
Sure.
And so after the 5th year, it finally got passed, and I think it was Representative Congressman Mulinar actually called us and talked directly to Hollie and said, I just want you to know that you helped this bill get passed. And so that was super important. And then the MyAbles bill was another one that came up because there's penalties to individuals that have disabilities and are receiving disability benefits. There's penalties to having a savings account. So it's hard for anybody to plan for the future, or if they have additional medical expenses that, you know, could be coming up, they can't have the money for that because they'll lose benefits. Mm-hmm. And so we went and advocated to have the MyAbles bill passed, and that is an established savings plan for individuals that have disabilities. They can save the money, it's protected, and they don't lose benefits in having that plan.
And that goes back to your points about trying to help her set her up for success in her future as well. So if you hadn't been able to do that, that's going to hang over your head as well to say, is she going to be financially able to?
Right, exactly.
One thing, so you serve multiple roles as an advocate. Like, you're someone who works for an organization whose goal is to help others, but also as a parent. So can you speak to what advocacy means to you in both of these roles? And maybe how do these roles differ?
Well, you know, at my job, I punch out and go home, right?
Sure.
But it doesn't really ever go away because you develop that rapport and that connection with people, and you know, they're just part of your life. But so as a parent, it's sometimes it's very hard to take off that advocacy, therapist, teacher, lecturer role, you know, those hats. It's hard to take those off and become a parent. So it's a unique situation that I'm in when I'm just trying to be mom, because I don't really even know if I know what just trying to be mom is like. So because it's just always advocating. It's always trying to make sure that she's understanding and that she's learning and that she's able to communicate. And anyway, as the advocate at work, or, you know, for friends out in the community, I think it's made me a stronger person. So I would have never, ever thought I'd be the person that could stand up and say, there's something wrong with making a month of acceptance, right? Like asking for acceptance. I would normally have just kind of kept my mouth quiet and just let that go. But now it's important as a human to be able to stand up and be a voice if there's not a voice out there.
Well, thank you for doing that for those who need your voice to also help and support them. So as a parent then, what are some of the things that are difficult with having a child with autism, but what are some of the things that's really rewarding for you with having a child with autism?
Oh my gosh. She's a spitfire, and so she keeps me on my toes. She keeps me young because I don't even know how to explain it. It's so hard to say because she is just one of these people that you never know where she's going. She's always like 2 steps ahead of me, and so when she does make progress in any way, it's like it's just a whole celebration. And it is something like, I go back to that prom dress, right? Mm-hmm. So when she's 2 years old and I'm already thinking about her prom dress because she's a little girl, and you know that's what moms do. When she was in high school and she actually got to go to prom, that was huge. Like that was, most people would laugh at the fact that a mom is so excited that her daughter's going to prom, right? Because that's what all high schoolers do. But it was something that we didn't know if she would be able to do that or not. So, or, you know, when she went to college, like when she went and decided to advocate for herself and go to college, it was huge, because those are things that, I think what I'm trying to say is that some of the things that people take for granted, we realize as parents that have children with disabilities, we realize that those aren't things that you shouldn't take for granted, right? You should really relish in every little thing that's deserves celebrating.
I can totally see that and understand that. So.
Yeah.
So, shifting gears a little, what do you think are some stigmas that surround those with autism or different cognitive abilities? And then how do those stigmas affect both the individuals with autism or those cognitive disabilities, but also their loved ones? So, what are those stigmas, and how does it impact both individuals and the families?
So, I don't know if you've ever heard of ableism.
Mm-hmm.
So ableism is when you're kind of like, you're for the able-bodied person, right? Or able-minded person. And so that means that everybody else is unable. And we have this idea that normal, we have this idea of what normal is. And we're all happy with normal. And even today we talk about a new normal, right? Like there's going to be a new normal because of COVID. And I don't want a new normal, because the old normal kind of sucked. I mean, it did, because the old normal and what we know is normal, which is comfortable for most people, isn't comfortable for people with disabilities, because they're not considered normal. And so, does that make sense?
Yeah, it actively excludes those.
Yes. So and that's what ableism is, right? We have this idea of what should be, and then everything that's not, doesn't fit into that nice little box, is not good enough. And so people that have disabilities are constantly having to prove that they're good enough. Like they have to work so hard just to prove that they are as good as somebody that doesn't have a disability. And that goes back to that bias thing, right? So saying like, we all know, we've heard the slogan, spread the word to end the word, right? The R word. We all know that's not a word that you should say, and we're all comfortable like not saying it. But there's so many other things that we do that is almost a microaggression that we don't even think about, right? Like just, for instance, when Hollie was here today with her staff, she has someone that accompanies her to help her in her daily living skills. You were respectful enough to direct all of your questions to Hollie. Oftentimes when people see her with staff, they will direct the questions to the staff.
Oh, I see.
And that's just, disrespectful. It's almost assuming that Hollie can't hear you or understand what you're saying when she can. And that is the case with most people with disabilities. If they are with a support person, then the support person automatically becomes that voice, right? Instead of people just, even somebody that can't speak or hear, that has to use sign language, when you talk to them, you should still talk to them, right? And then their interpreter can interpret. But look at them so that they know they're being included in the conversation. So that's just something very simple, is just address the person that you're there to talk to.
Sure. When more people are talking to those with autism or other disabilities, do you think that there's a right way or a wrong way to communicate? Is it, for example, maybe someone who slows their speech, or maybe these type of things? Do these help, or is there a way that people should communicate?
Just like you would communicate with me,
sure.
Right? So and you're right, a lot of people will lean in closer and talk slower and talk louder, and those are all ways of just not being very respectful. So if a person that has a disability can't understand you, they will let you know they can't understand you. And then, just listening, making sure that you are paying attention, listening to what they're saying, because their speech might be slower, or it might be a little bit harder to hear. And so if you are focused on them, let them finish what they're saying. Don't finish the sentence for them just because you might know the answer. Be patient, because they're going to say it, and they would appreciate being heard.
So what advice would you give to people, and just in general with interacting with people with autism or other cognitive disabilities? And also, what advice would you give to people maybe if they haven't had those interactions yet. So what advice do you think you'd give to these people about whether they are interacting with them or maybe they haven't, or
not being nervous about it, just accept it. And it's kind of hard for me to even answer that question because it's been a part of my life for so long that I don't know if I would not know how to communicate with somebody with a disability. But I think that, letting the person speak entirely, not cutting them off, and just showing that you're interested. So, it's just, if a person with a disability were to approach you and talk to you, just answer their question,
Sure, even if it's about the color of their shirt on Thursday,
even if it's about the color of their shirt on Thursday, right? Because you might realize that there might have been something cool about your shirt on Thursday that would create a whole conversation. So
absolutely. As we wrap up our hour together, what would you like our final message to our listeners today to be?
Just be accepting, right? Just I don't want to have to feel like I have to explain my daughter to people. I just want people to be able to accept humans for who they are, sure. Right? Not just my daughter, but anybody. It's some of my best friends I have met through this, this whole journey of living in the world of disability. And, they've become a huge part of my life, and I wouldn't have met them had I not, had that opportunity through the world of disability. So.
Well, thank you for being here today. Thank you for sharing your story, and thank you for sharing Hollie's story. And it was so great to talk to her today and to hear her, to just chit-chat in other languages though too. It's so much fun to chat with her.
She was looking forward to that. That's the one thing she kept talking about was we have languages in common.
That's
so.
right, anytime. So.
Yeah, good. Well, thank you for having us.
Thank you, Trisha.
Right.
You can stay connected with the Visibility Project by subscribing, liking, and sharing on your favorite podcasting and social apps. Look for us at the Visibility PRJ.
Financial support is needed to keep the conversation going. Go to midlandfoundation.org/give and select the Cultural Awareness Coalition Endowment Fund to be part of the project. Note podcast in your donation notes.
Thank you for listening.
We see you.
We hear you.
And together, we are making a difference.